Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic back again, and it's night one of WrestleMania 38. We're going to go through all of the things that happened on tonight's show, including Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair, and of course, the KO show between Kevin Owens and Steve Austin. What happened? We'll find out in just a sec, because this is what happened at WWE WrestleMania 38, night one. We are straight into the action with a 2-hour pre-show with no matches on it, but then we are straight into the action with an opening video package featuring Mark Wahlberg of Boston, not Dallas, Texas, but then we're straight into the action. Oh, there was America the Beautiful as well, but then we're straight into the action with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and then finally we are straight into the action with the SmackDown Tag Team title match. That means, of course, that Rick Boogs opens the wrestling portion of WrestleMania, and Pat McAfee is already beside himself, on the verge of climax, jumping over the announce table. He doesn't know what's going on. It's Shinsuke and Boogs versus the Usos. It's a very even start, but then Shinsuke gets the hot tag to Boogs, who dominates for a little while, but then he tries to lift both Usos up on his shoulders, and then his injured knee gives out, and it's hard to tell if this is real or not. It would feed into the storyline, I guess, building into this match, but at the same time, he didn't reappear for the entirety of the match, so hopefully he's okay, and if it was real, hopefully he recovers quickly. That means that Nakamura is forced to wrestle the rest of the match 2-on-1. He kicks out of a splash, but then falls victim to the 3D or the 1D, and the Usos retain in relatively straightforward and quick fashion. The next match sees Drew McIntyre take on Happy Corbin, accompanied, of course, by Madcap Moss. Corbin dominates a lot of the early stages of this match with heelish tactics, but then Moss gets too excited on the apron because Corbin is winning and distracts him, allowing Drew to turn the tables. Drew sets up for the Claymore kick, but Moss pulls Corbin out of the ring, but Drew's like, okay then, and does his big dive to the outside. Always impressive to see a man of Drew's size fly through the air like that. He hits a belly-to-belly on Moss on the outside. Thankfully, this one went okay for Moss. He managed to get enough air this time. Then back in the ring, Corbin avoids the Claymore kick and hits the end of days, but Drew kicks out. Now, Cole mentions on commentary, and Fraser and Owen, my colleagues here at Cultaholic, tell me that this is the first time anyone's kicked out of the end of days, which I find impossible, but apparently it's true. Drew hits the Future Shock DDT, but it's only good enough for 2. He then sets up in the corner, nails the Claymore kick, and wins the match. But it's not over yet, because Madcap Moss gets on the apron, interrupting Drew's celebration, so Drew swings his sword, Moss jumps out the way, and Drew slices 2 of the ring ropes. Tell you what, that's a pretty sharp sword, guys. Next, we have Rey and Dominik Mysterio taking on The Miz and Logan Paul. There's some special WrestleMania attire as well, as Rey and Dom are decked out in the Mexican and USA flags, while on the other hand, Miz and Logan have gone for the matching look with some lovely yellow and black numbers. Logan Paul gets a cheap shot in on Rey from the apron early on and tags in. He hits some nice looking strikes to Rey, leapfrogs him, hits the splits, and then kinda tries to avoid a kick from Rey, but we'll let him off. It was pretty close. Dom gets in at one stage and runs wild, but falls victim to a heavy power slam from Logan. He also even gets involved with some it kicks alongside The Miz, and even hits a second rope Buff Bagwell block buster. Eventually, Rey gets the hot tag to a huge pop, by the way. WrestleMania crowds just love Rey Mysterio, don't we all? And he hits the Three Amigos on The Miz, but then Logan gets in, and he does the Three Amigos to Rey to massive heel heat. He heads up top, hits the Eddie Guerrero shimmy, and nails a big frog splash for a very near fall. The Mysterios fight their way back into the match and hit the double 619 on Logan, but as they were hitting the ropes, Miz sneakily tagged himself in from the apron. So as the Mysterios do their follow-up offense on Logan, there's a nice frog splash from Dom in the mix, Miz takes full advantage, scooping up Rey, throwing him onto Dom, and then hitting Rey with the skull-crushing finale for the win. Logan Paul is 1-0 at WrestleMania. The streak has begun. But after the match, as Miz and Logan are celebrating, Miz turns on his friend and hits another skull-crushing finale. Logan looks heartbroken, Miz looks evil, but got like a huge cheer from the crowd for doing so. So we'll have to see how it pans out. Decent performance on the whole, I think, from Logan Paul. He's obviously a very athletic guy. It probably came to him a lot easier than it has others. I wouldn't quite put him on the same level as Bad Bunny, for example, but he certainly gave a good account of himself in there. Next up, it's Stephanie McMahon who comes out. She's there to introduce Gable Steveson. He waves for the crowd, and that's about it. Moving on. Next, we have the Raw Women's Championship match between Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. We have special entrances for this one as well. Becky arriving in an SUV and Bianca with a marching band. Very good stuff. This one feels big time. We get a nice callback to the SummerSlam match last year as Bianca goes for the handshake to start things off. Becky goes to hit her, but Bianca scoops her up for the KOD. Becky grabs her hair to get out though and turns it into a manhandle slam for a very near fall. The crowd bit on it. It's a great start to the match. Becky's still trying to end it quickly though and goes for a dirty pin with her feet on the ropes, but the referee spots it in time. She then goes for the moonsault and misses, and Bianca locks in the disarmer. I love a stolen finisher. I think we all do, but Becky makes the ropes. Bianca gets up on the middle rope with Becky over her shoulders and drops her down painfully onto the top turnbuckle. Then Bianca gets back up, a top rope 450 splash, only gets 2. Now it's Becky's turn to go to the top rope and she hits, I think it's meant to be a molly go round, but she just fully kicks Bianca in the face. It looks nasty. Bianca goes for the KOD again, but Becky grabs the top rope, so Bianca just does it to the outside of the ring. But on the outside, it's Becky who gains control of the match with a big manhandle slam onto the ring steps. She tries to win by countout, but Bianca just beats the referee's count of 10. Becky loses her mind thinking, what have I got to do to put this woman away? She drags Bianca back up for one final manhandle slam, but Bianca kicks off the turnbuckle, backflipping out of the move, and the crowd goes wild as she hoists Becky up for a final KOD and gets the win. Bianca Belair is the new Raw Women's Champion. This match was excellent. The first thing on the show, apart from, I guess, the appearance of Logan Paul as a celebrity, the first thing that felt really like a WrestleMania match. Next, we have Seth Rollins' match against a mystery opponent. Who could it be? Seth comes out with a special entrance. He's got fancy ring attire. He's got a choir playing him out to the ring. And there's a long, long wait for the identity of his opponent to be revealed. There's pyro, the lights all go down, and eventually, as we may have expected, his opponent is revealed to be Cody Rhodes. Cody gets a monster pop. It's one of the most surreal moments I can remember seeing in wrestling history, certainly recent wrestling history at the very least. Once Cody's entrance has finally been completed, they actually go on to have a very even opening of this match. They avoid each other's finishes early on, and there's a scary vertical suplex spot over the top rope to the outside. Seth takes control of the match and tells Cody, "Welcome back to the big leagues, bitch." So that's nice of him. Cody fights back though with a big suicide dive and kind of a moonsault slash crossbody for 2, but Seth then reverses a disaster kick on the outside of the ring into a terrifying powerbomb hard into the barricade on the outside. Back in the ring, he goes for the stomp, but Cody avoids it. Then Seth counters Crossroads into a roll-up for 2, but then Cody gets back up and nails the Crossroads, but again, it's only enough for 2. Cody heads up top, but Seth catches him with an insane back superplex and inverted Falcon Arrow combination, again only for 2. Cody then goes up top and hits a high-risk move, nailing the Cody Cutter, again for 2. Rollins goes for the pedigree, and again, Cody kicks out. Rollins now loses his temper and says, "Look, this is my house, my company, and my industry." And then he lays in a lot of stiff shots, little kicks to the head, heavy forearms, one to the back of the neck. It's all going Seth's way. But Cody gets a second wind and nails another Crossroads, but this time he keeps a hold, drags Seth back to his feet, hits another Crossroads, and then stops. Thinks about hitting a third, and then instead lets go of Seth and starts peppering him with Dusty Rhodes style strikes. A very nice tribute there to his father. He then hits the third Crossroads, covers Seth Rollins, 1, 2, 3, and Cody Rhodes has won his return match in WWE. Cody gets a big celebration. The crowd give him a nice ovation for what was a very, very good match, but Seth glares at him from the ramp as he celebrates, which I think means there's a possible rematch on the horizon. We have a brief break before the next match for the Hall of Fame segment, which goes as expected, but The Undertaker gets a special entrance, of course, with the gong and the music and all the pageantry. The next match is Charlotte Flair defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Ronda Rousey. There's a lot of takedowns and submission attempts to start the match. They go for the figure four and the armbar, neither woman really getting the upper hand. Charlotte, though, takes control eventually, getting a near fall off a hard spear. She also does like a top rope Boston Crab, but Ronda sits up and elbows her in the face. Ronda picks up some momentum with an arm drag off the middle rope for 2, then hits Piper's Pit and goes for the armbar, but Charlotte escapes. Ronda gets the ankle lock locked in, but Charlotte reverses it into one of her own, so Ronda counters by rolling Charlotte, hitting her head into the bottom turnbuckle. There are more submission exchanges and another ankle lock from Ronda, this time grapevining the ankle like Kurt Angle, but Charlotte turns around and kicks her away. Ronda reverses the figure 4 into an armbar, but Charlotte slips out in the nick of time and gets the figure 8 fully locked in, but Ronda rolls over and they end up under the ropes, so they have to break. Ronda hits Piper's Pit again and the referee counts to 3, but realizes that no, Charlotte's foot was on the ropes, and then while Ronda pleads with the referee, she takes natural selection for a very close near fall. Charlotte again goes for the figure 8 but gets shoved off and spears Charles Robinson, inadvertently I guess, and he's out of there for now. Ronda immediately slaps on an armbar and gets the visual tap, but obviously the referee's not looking, so Ronda goes over and revives him, but as she's doing so, Charlotte blindsides her with a big boot, drops down, makes the cover, 1, 2, 3, and somewhat surprisingly I think, Charlotte Flair retains the title. Now obviously Ronda's got a lot of gripes here. It could lead to a rematch. She had the visual submission after all. Charlotte took advantage of her while she was like tending to the referee. But yeah, Charlotte is still our SmackDown Women's Champion. Now, at this latter stage of the night, reports started to emerge on Twitter from Fightful that one of the matches had been cut for time. That turned out to be New Day versus Sheamus and Ridge Holland, and next up, it's the Kevin Owens segment. So yeah, it looks like that match was cut. You've got to feel for those guys involved. Hopefully, although we don't know at the time of recording, but hopefully they managed to squeeze it in tonight too, I guess. It really raises the question, why didn't they just put a match on the pre-show? But yes, the next segment is indeed the Kevin Owens show. Owens hits the ring. Here he comes. They've got the chairs set up and the signs for the KO show. And Kevin gets on the mic and reminds us that he really hates Texas. He also says that Steve Austin is the worst role model in WWE history and that he plans, when Austin arrives, to tell him how much he sucks and that Austin won't do a damn thing. Otherwise, Kev will kick his ass. Austin's music cuts him off. Huge pop, obviously. And here comes Stone Cold. Knee braces on. Interesting. He starts to head down the ramp but thinks twice and heads to the back, only to drive back out on his quad bike. Austin gets in the ring and starts kicking over the KO show signs, throwing them out the ring, and Owens is like, "Whoa, cut the music, this is my show," and he tells Austin to have a seat. Steve's fuming. He's like, "Whoa, you've talked trash about me and the great state of Texas." So Kevin Owens says, "Look, I've got to admit something, Austin. I didn't invite you here just to talk. In fact, I've tricked you because I'm looking for a fight, and not just any fight. I'm looking for a match." Owens officially challenges Austin to a no-holds-barred match and says, "Hey, I don't think you're even going to do it because you know that you can't beat me." Austin replies that he had his first ever match in Dallas, Texas, and hey, maybe he'll have his last ever match in Dallas, Texas too. Austin says, "Get a referee down here," and they have a stare down and the match begins. Austin is legitimately having a match at WrestleMania 38. They brawl and Austin stomps a mud hole and the crowd are just going wild. He gets a beer thrown in the ring, he drinks it, he's beating Kevin around on the outside, but Owens turns the tide and sends Austin into the ring post. Owens gets a table out from under the ring and sets it up against the barricade, but surprise, surprise, he ends up being the one whipped into it himself and the table breaks and the crowd is still going very much wild. They brawl in the crowd. This is where I was legitimately shocked, right? Owens hits a vertical suplex on Steve Austin on the concrete. That's Austin's first bump in 19 years. Well, the first bump we've seen, I guess, in 19 years. And yeah, it was a legitimately shocking moment. They brawl back to ringside and Austin gets back in control and the beatdown resumes and more beers are thrown at him. He's like Popeye, they're like fueling him like spinach. Owens has had enough, he tries to steal the quad bike, but Austin gets on the back as well and they ride up to the top of the stage. There's a couple of vertical suplexes from Austin to Owens up there and then he beats him back down the ramp. In the ring though, Owens catches Austin with a stunner, 1, 2, but Austin gets the shoulder up just in time. Owens then grabs a steel chair and I think I've only ever seen Kurt Angle do this better. A picture-perfect miss and rebound off the top rope into your own face, steel chair spot from Kev. He's staggered, he gets hit with a stunner, Austin makes the cover, 1, 2, 3, and Stone Cold wins. We then get the traditional post-victory Steve Austin beer bash. There's another stunner for Owens, who gets escorted away by Texas police officers. Austin gets on the mic and says that's the bottom line because Stone Cold says so, and continues having a lovely party to himself until Byron Saxton unwisely gets in the ring and tries to share a beer with Austin, and of course, eats a stunner. Austin has a nice moment with his brother who gets in the ring, and they have a nice hug, and that is how WrestleMania 38 Night 1 goes off the air. A huge night of big matches and big moments as well. And honestly, even though obviously he's aged, Austin looked a lot better than I suspected he would. Not just in terms of mechanically how he was moving, but also in terms of his cardio. I thought he'd be way more blown up than he actually was. Very impressive stuff. As for my favorite match of the night, it's probably got to be Becky versus Bianca, but Rollins versus Cody pushes it close. But what did you think? Let me know in that comment section down below, and thank you very much for watching this video. Join me back here again around the same sort of time on this very channel for night 2, but for now, take it easy out there, and I'll see you very soon.